learning long drop shadow in Adobe Photoshop. In the last lesson, we learned about how to add a drop shadow, and in this lesson, we are going to learn about the long drop shadow in Adobe Photoshop. The process of adding drop shadow and the long drop shadow are a little bit different. You may have to use a long drop shadow for several times so when you will work in Adobe Photoshop, and we are going to learn this entire process in this lesson. So let me show you the output for adding a long drop shadow, and you can take a look. This is an image from our exercise file, and it's an image of shoe, and we are going to add a long drop shadow on this shoe. So let me show you the output. Okay, you can take a look. We have a long drop shadow for this shoe image, and we are going to learn this entire process right now. So let's take a look how you will add a long drop shadow in an image in Adobe Photoshop. So at first we have to open our exercise file. So here is the file menu, open option, and inside the shadow folder you will get this long drop shadow image. So you just have to select it and then you have to click open. Okay, this is our image, and it's an image of a shoe, but you can take a look. The background of this image is transparent and it's not really looking well, so we want to add a background first. And you can add a background easily with the solid color. We want to put some solid color for making the background, and you can add solid color easily from the adjustment layer. So this is the adjustment layer inside our layer panel. If you click over here, then you will get this solid color option. So let me pick this solid color option, and this is the color picker. You can pick any color from here. So let's pick some color. Okay, this color seems good, and I want to click OK. Okay, so we have the yellow color as our background, but you can take a look, the shoe still invisible. So we have to make it visible. So how you can do that? You can do that easily. Right now we have two layers in our layer panel. So this is the solid color layer and this is the shoe image. So let's rename the layers, then it will help us to understand. So this is solid color layer, and therefore I want to rename this layer name instead of color fill 1. So you just have to double click with your mouse and then you have to type solid color. Okay, and this is the another layer, and this is the main image layer, and I want to rename the layer. Instead of layer 1, let me write shoe. Okay, so we have two layers, shoe layer and solid color layer, but still our shoe is invisible. So we have to move this shoe layer at top, then the shoe will be visible. So let's move this shoe layer at top. Magic, we can take a look. The shoe is visible right now, and we have a perfect background for this image. So we have a nice background, and right now we will apply long drop shadow in this image. To apply a long drop shadow for this shoe, we have to make a selection for this shoe. And you know which tool you have to use for selection? Yes, you are right, you have to use the quick selection tool. So this is the quick selection tool, and please make sure you are using this add selection form. And here is the plus sign. You can follow this plus sign. If you use this plus sign, then you will able to make the selection, but if you use this subtract selection, then this tools is gradually using for removing or deducting the extra selected area. So we are going to make a selection, that's why we have to use this add selection form or this plus sign form. Okay, so let's start make a selection for this shoe, and we will only make the selection for this shoe only. We will not make any selection with the others part over here. Okay, we have a perfect selection. And right now we have to add a new layer because we will fill this selection with a black color for making a long drop shadow, and we want to make this fill with a different layer, and that's why we want to add a new layer. So let's add a new layer. To add a new layer, you just have to click on this plus sign inside this layer panel, and you can take a look. A new layer is added. So I just have to rename this layer name, and let me write shadow. Okay, so here is our new layer, and please make sure this shadow layer is selected. And now with this shadow layer, we will fill this selection with black color, and to do that we have to go for edit menu, and from there we will go for fill option. So this is the fill option. Okay, cool. So this is the pop-up for fill, and from the contents you have to make sure your contents with the black option. You may have different option like foreground color, background color, or content hour, and any others content you may have selected, but we will go for black option. And for blending option we will use the normal mode, and opacity should be 100%. And so let me click OK, and you can take a look. We have a black fill color for this selection, and it really looks good. So if you follow this shadow layer, you can take a look. The selection is filled with black color in shadow layer. So this is what we wanted to do, and right now we will apply this black fill color shoe as a long drop shadow. So let's do that. We have to make a deselection for this shoe. You can take a look. We have the still selection, and to deselect you can press Ctrl or Command D from your keyboard, or you can just go for select menu, and here is the deselect option. Okay, right now we have deselection for this shoes, and we have to move this shadow layer at middle of this shoe and solid color layer. So we want to place this shadow layer at second place, and we want to put this shoe layer at top. So let's put this shadow layer at middle. Okay, you can take a look. Right now we have the shoe layer at top, shadow layer at middle, and solid color at bottom. So we have to make sure this shadow layer is selected, and the shadow layer is placed behind this shoe, as because we have the shoe layer at top and the shadow layer is at second. So therefore this shadow layer or the black selection is placed behind this shoe, and we want to make it visible, and we want to make this shadow layer as our long drop shadow. As we will use this shadow layer as our long drop shadow, so we have to scale this shadow layer properly, and to do that we have to use the scaling option, and we have to scale the shadow layer, and we have to make a long drop shadow. And you know how to scale this shadow layer. You just have to press Ctrl or Command T button from your keyboard, or you can just click the edit menu, transform option, and here is the scale option. Okay, so let's scale this shadow layer, and let's make this shadow layer as our long drop shadow, and let's make it bigger. Okay, looks good. So you just have to hit the intro button, or you just have to click this tick mark for commit the action. Okay, so right now we have a long drop shadow, but is it really looks like a shadow? I think it's not really looks like a shadow, because it's just a fill color with the black color, and it's the frame of this shoe, but it's not really looks like a shadow. It will really look like a shadow when we will reduce the opacity of this shadow layer. So let's reduce the opacity. Here is the option for reducing the opacity. You just have to click on this opacity option. Right now we have the 100% opacity, and we have to reduce the percentage of opacity. So let's reduce it. Okay, right now we have the 45% opacity, and now it really looks like a shadow. And you can take a look, we have a nice long drop shadow for our image. So this is the simple way for creating the long drop shadow in an image in Adobe Photoshop. So I'm pretty sure you enjoyed this lesson. So let's have some practice.